All right, so I am holding what is supposedly the most advanced GPS fence ever created. This is the SpotOn Nova edition, and I gotta be honest, when companies throw around phrases like revolutionary or game-changing, I tend to roll my eyes because, like, really, it's usually just marketing fluff. But after seeing my team put this through some seriously brutal tests and getting to test it out with Poppy these last few weeks, I've gotta say, I think maybe it lives up to the name. I mean, this GPS fence actually does something that I don't think any other GPS dog fence on the market can say, and that is it will work with near certainty when it matters most. If you don't believe me, watch through this video, and if by the end you find yourself convinced, there is a discount link in the description below to save yourself a little bit of money on this collar right here. I mean, not obviously this exact one. They'll send you one like it, and it'll be in, you know, its own box, and it obviously ships very well and secure. So not this exact one. I'm keeping this one for the time being. Here's the thing that made me sit up and pay attention. SpotOn sent their latest model collar to a company called Spirent, which is an independent GPS testing firm that essentially puts products like these through the absolute ringer. They torture these things. And Spirent came back with numbers that sounded frankly too good to be true, which was 100% containment. Not 99%, not, you know, almost not quite, 100%. Now, I am always going to be suspect of a perfect score in just about any context. So my team took 3 of these collars and we went out and tested them in some of the worst GPS terrains that we could find. Things like dense tree cover, properties with a lot of like weird terrain or buildings, at places that barely had any cell service. And the thing is, it kind of just worked no matter what. So when we approached a boundary, we got a warning tone. When we crossed the boundary, we got the vibration we were looking for again and again and again, right where we were expecting it to be. So to the folks at SpotOn, congratulations, you've got it. You cracked it. You already had the best one on the market, and somehow you made it better. So good for you. The other number that matters here is drift. So typically GPS dog collars will drift anywhere from 10 to 20 feet of where they think the boundary is. Now that number for the SpotOn Nova is 3 to 6 feet. So if you've got a property that butts up to a road or to a neighbor's property, or literally just anywhere that you don't want your dog poking around, that difference becomes less of a technical specification and more of just kind of the whole point. So what is actually different here? Because every GPS collar company claims that they've cracked the code and made a perfect unit. And with SpotOn, it comes down to 3 things that you really just won't find anywhere else. First, I mean, the antenna on this thing is just massive. I mean, even obviously it still fits on a dog collar, but compared to every other collar like this on the market, this antenna is like 5 times bigger. That's not just, you know, a general improvement. That's a completely different approach to how it's capturing these satellite signals. And what that means in practice is that it can connect to over 151 satellites and maintain those connections even when GPS conditions can get rough. My team ran comparison tests with the SpotOn and 2 other collars in dense tree cover, and you can actually see the difference if you're monitoring these apps side by side. The other collars apps showed a kind of jittery, jumpy position tracking that almost made it look like Poppy was teleporting around the yard. And with SpotOn, the motion was smooth and consistent, always showing exactly where they were. And that is just the improved antenna at work. The second thing is this technology that they call true location. And this isn't just like software that reads GPS data, it actually analyzes how your dog is moving and adjusts to the environment accordingly. So if Poppy is sprinting towards the boundary, it will realize that, hey, this is not the same thing as the dog just wandering around slowly, and it will actually react faster. The reason this matters is actually something that I've noticed when it comes to other previous GPS dog collars. There's always this little bit of lag between when your dog reaches the boundary and when that correction kicks in. It's usually just like 1 to 2 seconds, but it's like the collar is reacting to reality as it happens. For a dog that's just running at full tilt or chasing a squirrel, what that means is they can cross the boundary and keep going before any sort of correction even hits and the dog even knows what's going on. Now, what makes the difference with the new SpotOn? It's this true location technology. Poppy can be running at full speed towards a boundary and she will receive a correction early because she's moving faster and be able to actually turn around and get back to safety. The third thing is what they call a dual band, dual feed antenna with a dual band receiver. I know that sounds a little bit like word salad, but what that means in practice is that the collar receives about 4 times the cell reception than most other comparable systems. And so if you live out in the country or somewhere with, more remote cell service, or you have some more of that difficult terrain on your property, that essentially makes the difference between a system that is going to work versus a system that's just gonna give up. Okay, so all of that new improved tech is great, but it doesn't really matter if the thing is a nightmare to use, right? Well, more good news to report, it's not. So setting up the fence takes about 15 minutes. You open the app, you walk the perimeter of your property while holding your phone as it GPS tracks your path, and that's it. You've got a fence. You can make it any shape or any size. I've heard of people using SpotOn for boundaries over 100,000 acres. And I've also heard of people having success using it on a lot that's like 1/3 of an acre. The system itself doesn't really care. You just set up the boundary and it just works. You draw it, it holds the line. The part that really sold me though was the keep out zones feature. So you've got your general boundary around your property, right? But there are also some places on your property that you don't want your dog to get into. For us, that's, the driveway and the garden. Now, for others, it might be a pool or a pond or, a work shed that you don't want your dog digging around in. Basically anywhere that you don't want your dog sniffing around, you can just create an interior boundary within your property that basically keeps your dog where you want them. So, I mean, in a sense, you're not just building a perimeter, you are deciding how you want your dog to interact with your property. Training Poppy with the SpotOn did take some time, and I want to be upfront about that because I feel like a lot of people assume that you just strap the collar on the dog and then you're good to go. And that's really not how it works. There is a period of training. You have to get your dog used to the system. The goal of the training is once you have gotten your dog used to the system and trained them on it, they don't actually need steps 2 and 3. They just hear the sound and go, oh, I should probably turn around. And that has eventually worked with Poppy. But again, it took some time. All things do. With Poppy, it took probably 2 full days of training before I felt confident leaving the collar on her and not, just constantly watching and monitoring her. Now she just hears the tone and she turns around knowing that she's approaching the boundary and she needs to head back. Beyond the core fence functionality, SpotOn threw in a bunch of features that I didn't think I would need until I actually had them and figured out, hey, these are actually pretty great. Custom voice commands I have found to be legitimately useful. I recorded myself saying, Poppy, come, into my phone, and now I can trigger that sound on the dog's collar. Off-grid mode solves a problem that I didn't even realize that I had. The fence itself runs just on GPS, which means it works whether you have cell service or not. The monthly subscription adds real-time tracking and remote features, but the actual containment doesn't need cellular at all. So if you're camping or you've got a cabin in a remote area, the fence is still gonna work whether you have the service or not. And that is huge, especially if you travel often with your dog. Activity monitoring is new on the SpotOn Nova. It tracks how much Poppy is moving, where she's spending her time, and that kind of thing. It's not like a full-fledged fitness tracker, but it's nice context. If she suddenly starts, being way less active, that could be a sign that something might be off health-wise. Now, I don't obsess over the data myself, but if you want to keep track of how much your dog is getting active, it's a real nice to have. Battery life on the collar is solid. SpotOn claims 40 hours without tracking active and between 30 and 36 hours with tracking engaged. Now, me myself, I just kind of charge it whenever I'm done using it for the day. So I haven't run into any battery issues yet, but obviously if I do, you'll be the first to know. Now, the one place where SpotOn has not improved in this latest iteration is, unfortunately, the price. The Nova is not cheap, and I'm not here to pretend that it isn't. To its credit, the Nova is a one-time purchase. You can buy the collar and use it to create as many boundaries as you want. No per acre fee, no extra fees for making more fences, and no necessary subscription for those boundaries to work. There are other cheaper GPS dog collars out there, but most of them require a month-to-month or annual subscription in order to continue working. There is an add-on subscription feature to SpotOn, which gives you, the activity tracking, the voice commands, real-time monitoring. But again, it's extra, it's bonus. It's not necessary for the core functions to work, and that is on or off grid. If you want basic containment, you are fine to skip it. The SpotOn costs what it does because it is built to a high standard of quality centered on reliability and consistency. It's built in the US, it's hand verified, and it's backed by independently verified performance. In this category, the consistency and reliability is not a bonus feature, it is the whole point. So here is my verdict. If you have a mid to large size dog and a difficult property, whether that's complex terrain, dense tree coverage, or you travel a lot, or you need flexible boundaries, then SpotOn is the only GPS fence that I would recommend. The training is part of the deal, and you have to put in the time to make sure your dog understands how the system works. But once that system is set up, you can trust that it is going to work exactly as it says it's going to. If you want real freedom for your dog without having to think about if the system is going to fail, it begins and ends with SpotOn. Be sure to use the link in the description below. That gives you the most up-to-date and lowest pricing available. If you have any questions about the SpotOn fence or any GPS fence or how the SpotOn is going to fit on your dog, please drop them in the comments. I do try and read those. That is all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. We greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, we will see you in the next one.